the last week of October, I encountered something that broke my rule of the universe. I was taking a guest into Newport, which is the closest town to the Abbey, and we went into the hardware store because I think I was picking up something like, I don't know, something for the kitchen. And it was October 26th. And all the Christmas stuff was already in the hardware store, and I was mortified. I mean, I was just shocked. I mean, Halloween hadn't even happened, and here's the stuff for Christmas. And I thought, this is wrong. This is really wrong. And so, I was just then thinking about my past as a school teacher and hearing the kids starting to talk about what they wanted for Christmas November 1st, because that was, when things were really happening that way. And then seeing all these kids from actually very poor families have all these expectations of what they wanted and what they saw and what they thought they should have. And I knew that all of these expectations and their wish list was just not going to come to fruition on December 25th. And then the heartbreak that happens for many of these kids, in an affluent country like Canada, and it's the same worldwide, where kids are just built up for months, actually weeks and months, and so are the parents, and so is everyone in this culture when Christmas starts October 26th. So I'm going to talk a little bit about generosity today and how to work with this mind that encounters the situation that we're in, so that we're not hating it and not criticizing it and just being, miserable about it, but just using these opportunities, like this is the season of giving, to work with that in our minds. So the far-reaching attitude of generosity is based on this wish to become a Buddha to benefit all beings. And also the far-reaching attitude of generosity is combined with a wisdom aspect that recognizes the whole act of giving, the giver, the gift, the recipient. None of those things exist inherently from their own side. And I think for most of us, until we've done a lot of reflection and study in Buddhism, that aspect of giving probably isn't so foremost in our mind. But we can have the aspiration to understand what all of that is about. So generosity actually is just the wish to give. That's it. It's the wish to share. And then if we can actually give, that's better, of course, but it really starts with this wish of giving. And so even the Buddha said that we can attain this perfection of giving just by cultivating the wish to give, just by doing that in every situation we're in. Because it's this wish, this motivation, that's the most important thing. And so practicing generosity is just not about fulfilling sentient beings' needs and wants and wishes. I mean, who can do that? That's just an impossibility. It's it's not even suitable for us to even think that we can do it, or suitable for us to want to do it. It's just this wish for us to want to be of benefit in whatever way we can. So the perfection of generosity is the first of the far-reaching attitudes, and it comes first because, according to Venerable Children, it's supposed to be the easiest one. But I think in our own experience, it's not so easy, this gift of giving. And there's a story that she tells of one woman who had such trouble with giving that the Buddha instructed her to first of all start off by taking a carrot and giving it back and forth to each of her hands, just so that she could part for a millisecond with, parting with this carrot and then giving it to the other hand. And this is how she started. I don't think any of us here are maybe in that state, but if we are, that's one technique we can start with. You might do it with your iPhone. I don't know. You can choose something that sort of pulls at your heart a bit. So there's 3 kinds of giving, and today's talk I'll just focus on the giving of material things. And there's a number of things to be said about this, actually. So in the practice of giving material things, the motivation, again, is just most important. We want to give with a kind motivation toward the receivers. And we also want to develop the specific thought beforehand that we're giving in order to become a Buddha. Now, do you have that thought in mind every time you give? So giving in this way then isn't just this warm-hearted feeling that we have when we just give things, but to have this motivation of, when I'm giving this to you, it might be a thing, it might be just some time that I'm making for you, to have this thought in our mind, I'm doing this so that I can become fully awakened, so that at that point I can really be of benefit. So there's another point to consider with this gift of giving, and it's to be wise and realistic in our giving. And so sometimes we can fall into this state of, okay, I'm going to just give everything I have away. I'm just so thrilled now that I've gotten over this big bump of being miserly, I'm just going to give every chance I have. And so if you happen to have a credit card, this can get you into serious trouble. And then you've got, other things that are in the way of you becoming a Buddha, including debt and possibly, creditors chasing you down and people taking away your credit card and things like that. So it has to be realistic. And then to not feel badly about what it is that we can give, If you're coming up to the Abbey and all you can bring is, well, even just your time. There's always dishes to be done here, and we're very happy to get help with the dishes. So I think it's being very realistic about what we can give with our current state of what we have. And then Venerable Chodron, in one of her teachings, has said that it's very important to imagine giving even when you can't. And this is just this ongoing practice of imagining being in a position of giving, and we can't physically or materially or even with time maybe, but just having this ongoing wish. And this strengthens our mind so that when we are in the situation to give, it'll come naturally. It won't be like this thing of like, oh, should I, shouldn't I won't have it, they'll have it. That kind of, misery that happens when we're not practiced in giving. And then there's another thing about giving without pride. So this can sort of be an obstacle. So we've gotten into this habit of giving now. We might think, I'm getting pretty good at this. I'm a pretty generous person. I'm more generous than this person over here. It's in my mind all the time to give. And then I've noticed when I used to live in Edmonton, places like hospitals and concert halls honor big donors with things like busts of themselves and, full-size statues. And I would think for those major donors, I think that would be very difficult to deal with. Like, if I've given a big chunk of change and I get a bust made of myself, and then this person over here gets a full-size statue, I'd be wanting to know the difference in giving, I think. And then it would be the whole gift of giving to the hospital will be lost in, how was I honored in my gift? So we can get really haywire with the pride thing getting in the way. Or we might even get haywire with people always noticing, gosh, you're so generous with your time. You give in every opportunity. And that can sort of be in our mind too when we're giving. So it's very tricky to watch what our mind will do with these kinds of things. And then another piece of advice that Venerable Chodron gives is not giving things obtained by wrong livelihood. Now, I don't think that's something that we have to worry about so much, but, when I was, I saw it when I was younger. I saw kids involved in taking things from stores. They couldn't afford the thing. They knew their mom really wanted this vase, and so they went in and got it and gave it to their mom for Mother's Day and things like that. So we have to watch about how we get things and how we part with them too. It makes me think of another funny story. There was this one year that we planted tulips at school in the spring. Some of you have heard this story. So the tulips are doing really well until Mother's Day. And then the day after Mother's Day, the tulip bed was scalped. And I'm sure there was some pretty happy mothers in the community. And I don't know if they figured out that the school, tulip bed was the donor of this, but oh well. I think the most precious thing that we can give, though, any time in this season of giving and for the rest of the year, though, is the gift of time. This is what we can give regardless of what we've got, regardless of our financial position. And it is the most precious gift we have because we only have a certain amount of time on the planet. And I think, if you're lying on your deathbed and you're remembering things that happened to you, are you going to remember the gifts that you got December 25th, 1975? You may remember the gift. Maybe you would if it was really something outlandish or extraordinary. But I think what we will remember is the feeling that happened between us as the recipient or the giver and the receiver. So those moments of connection when we give are really what stays with us. So in this season where we're going to be bombarded, if you're out there and not in a monastery, or even if you're in a monastery and you go out to the hardware store, we can just make time for other people. So when we go into the post office, when we go into the food store, we can take time to speak to the clerk who's helping us. Because, the people who are working in retail right now, they have a really outrageous schedule, in my opinion. Some of these people will be working Christmas Day. They'll be working on all the holidays. And for them to receive some kind of attention from us that's warm and considerate, I think is really great. And also to start looking around your neighborhood and just notice the people in your neighborhood. Maybe they're elderly, maybe they're currently in the hospital, maybe they have kids and they're overworked, just to make time and to see how you can help out. And that is a really, that's an invaluable gift. And then to notice the state of mind that giving gives us. And to conclude today with that, I'll just make an example of our community and someone who's been here for 6 months now, Lana. And I think we'd all agree that the first words that come out of Lana's mouth whenever she sees one of us is, "How can I help?" Or it may be, "Do you need help?" And so we've seen this consistently in the last 6 months. And now she has this incredible opportunity to be assisting Venerable Jigme, who is recovering from a minor foot procedure, and Lana is her 24/7 assistant. And so what I observed today is that Lana is beaming. So if you have any doubt in your mind about what giving can do, try it out, because it is going to change your heart and your mind.